Welcome to episode 18 of Podshots. Today's episode is a special one as we're talking with Narciso Reyes. If you don't yet know, Narciso has been both the country head of Google Philippines and also a regional director for Facebook's largest advertising network in Southeast Asia. In this episode, we're going to jam on the current global climate and the future, diving into history, politics, and the human condition. Now, we hope you enjoy this episode because we loved recording it. And if you do, please remember to show support and subscribe, like, and leave a review. Okay, now let's get started and welcome Narciso Reyes. There's a guy on Instagram. Well, he's not just on Instagram, but he uses Instagram a lot, and he does one piece of artwork every day. And I know you follow him, Narciso. His name is Beeble Crap.
Yeah,
and he's got some fucking tricky stuff.
So that was a background I actually wanted to use. I wanted to have like the Corona fucking virus. And if you don't know this guy, right? Like he posts all sorts of wacky stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And like, you know, crazy combinations of like Kim Jong-un sucking on the teeth of Trump or stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So he's got this coronavirus spaceship one.
Yeah, I know. I'm just what I'm looking at right now. Okay. Wait, hold on. This is gonna work. I'm sure this is gonna work.
So I was trying to do that, but I don't know. I think the video is too large, so it wouldn't let me upload that. I only get like the static image.
Ah, okay.
So anyway, I tried. I wanted to do that because I thought you might know that one.
Hey,
there you go. Yeah.
What? Did he make this just for Zoom? I feel like he made this just for Zoom.
But you don't have the motion, right? It's not moving.
Oh no. This is just a static image. You can add a video too, right? Yeah.
Brandon, you're the only one who's not in a starship.
Dude, man, you need to be.
What is that? It looks like you're flying around the coronavirus.
That's exactly it.
This dude is amazing, man. He posts one new piece of artwork and he does it very quickly. He's done time lapses have been working. I guess he's just really used to it, and he puts together all these elements on a canvas, and out comes these crazy, very satirical pop art, kind of like, well, not pop art, but popular kind of culture art, and it's actually disgusting. A lot of it's really disgusting.
It's disturbing.
Yeah, it's disturbing, but it's kind of it's a reminder of all of the shit that's going on right now, you know. But anyway, dude. It's good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, man. It has been a while.
How long has it been? It's been like a year?
At least.
Yeah. Where was the last time we saw each other? Ooh, I have a feeling it was some bar somewhere.
Was it in the Shang?
Yeah, probably. Or the Peninsula.
Yeah.
Could have been either. Didn't you fall asleep in the Peninsula once? I mean, not in the bedroom. That would have been normal. I mean, in the foyer.
Yeah, the lobby. I could have. I'm surprised I'm not banned. You know.
Yeah. No, well, that's when you know you've had a good day.
That's another life, though.
Well, what have you been up to, man? I mean, obviously, tell me what's been happening since coronavirus hit. Like, where were you? What happened? And how come you were?
I was just traveling. I just happened to be traveling to the U.S., right? Because I was traveling with my aunt, right?
Yeah.
She, she's a bit older, right? And she wanted to make sure she got here safe. And we got out just before Manila went into lockdown.
Yeah.
We were like maybe a day before. And then as soon as we arrived here in Chicago, Trump shut down Europe. And then kind of like been here since. So, yeah, it's just been surreal. But where I am, it's pretty normal, right? Yeah. You don't have people rioting or nothing untoward happening, right? People here.
Yeah, I mean, restrictions or anything?
What's that?
Do you have any like restrictions on like, movement, being outside?
At first everybody was like shelter in place, but I mean, now it's just, hey, if you're going into a store, right, wear a mask.
Yeah.
If you're going to be in the door area, mask. People are, I mean, they're observing the social distancing rules. We haven't run into, like anyone marching in the streets or anything like that. So when the protests started, they broke into like, what's that place called? Best Buy, which was like maybe about a mile and a half away, right? But they were pretty good in terms of like locking everybody back down and kind of like controlling the whole spread of that, considering that, there's a huge African American community in the south side of Chicago, right? But not much going on. I mean, for me, it's been pretty surreal, right? So it's I'm out here in the suburbs. You barely see anybody anyway, right? So it's just another day in the life, right? I just can't really go where I need to be.
Yeah, I can imagine how. Go ahead, Brendan.
Well, I was just saying that's good. It's good that like life isn't that much different. There's a lot of places in the world that are not handling it very well and that do kind of have those issues. So it's good to know that you're not dealing with it on a extreme scale.
Yeah, when I heard, normally I'm in New York, right, and that's where I was supposed to go after, but that was the first epicenter, at least over here, right? So it was just, what I found most surreal about the whole thing was the sense of, I guess, denial in a lot of people. Like they weren't impacted. It wasn't near them. So they were just like, is it real? Is it happening? Right. And then, my feed is full of all sorts of like different things. Right. So it's just to see kind of all of these different points of view in terms of what was really happening. Right. And even now we'll still see people like saying, it's not really.
Who do you follow? Like what kind of sources are you following when it comes to like all of this breaking news? And I'm curious because I'm still working on my curation.
Yeah. So I started unfollowing a lot of different things, right? But then I found that as I removed stuff and people, I actually wanted to go completely off, right? But then I was like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and it requires me to be on, right? And then I've got different things tied to a Facebook account or my Facebook account. So I'm like, I can't go completely off of that. But what I've done is I've tried to tune out certain people, right? Where I feel that they're really sources of fake news and misinformation, right? I've tried to really go back to more, I guess, traditional media sources that are, I find that they're pretty spot on, right? Like I'll do like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, the standard guys, Reuters. I find like Reuters and AP very, very kind of like middle ground, right? So it's like, okay, they're not really going to go left and not going to go right, and they'll just kind of like tell it like it is. And then one of the things that I'm working on is we're standing up we've been in the process of standing up an agency that deals with a lot of political issues, right? So I've had to, whether I like it or not, kind of go back in and cast the net a little further, right? But I think, this is a remarkable thing I find about social media, as much as I hate being on it, is that the algorithm and the AI does a pretty good job of like surfacing what is kind of trending, right? So it's impossible to kind of tune out completely or really remove all of the white noise. It's just really up to you to kind of like filter it and do a better job of editing what's going on, right? Yeah. Axios, I look at them. who are the other guys? I can send you a list. And then of course I subscribe to a bunch of different newsletters, right?
Right.
Some of them paid, some of them not, right? I find that with the paid stuff, you really get a lot of in-depth stuff that, it's like, oh, wow. I'm super in geopolitics and whatnot. So the paid subscriptions that I go to.
Are you still following George?
Yeah, Friedman.
Yeah, how's that going? Because I'd stopped subscribing, I'll be honest. But you were the one who introduced me to the Geopolitical Futures newsletter, and it was really great. I just found like I didn't have anything really to do with it, but that's why I kind of canceled it.
Oh, yeah,
it was really good though.
Yeah, I love it. I think he's spot on in a lot of his predictions. And then another guy that I subscribe to, or at least his newsletter, and you get these by just kind of like clicking around, right? And like one guy recommends another guy, right? But there's this other guy who Friedman likes to work with called John Malden, right? M-A-U.
Malden Economics, right?
What's that?
Malden Economics?
Yeah. I think that's his thing, but he does a pretty good newsletter in terms of like explaining what's going on, right? Yeah. In terms of market realities, where the market might be headed, just at least at like a very top level, that you can kind of like understand the larger forces at work without diving deeper into the minutia.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, just to go back to the point that you were making about closing down the whole social media game. Yeah, there was times during the quarantine that I felt completely overwhelmed and so depressed and sick and tired of hearing all this, what turns out to be very sensational news. Sure. I mean, I have gone up and down, left and right, or what? I don't know what's going on with my screen here, but like, yeah, in terms of what I believe, I still don't know. I'm still going back and forth with it, depending on who I talk to.
Exactly. And I just found myself getting angry, right? I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So as much as I don't want to be in an echo chamber, I was like, okay, well, maybe it's okay to be in an echo chamber once in a while. Right? Because what I've found here in the U.S., and I'm not well into I think the U.S. would probably be the most relevant for this topic. But Brandon, are you American or Canadian?
I'm American. I wish I was Canadian.
Yeah, I know, right? Right. I wish I were Canadian right now. But for me, America is just kind of like, excuse me, completely fucking bananas, right?
Yeah.
Like, where are these people getting news sources? And I feel like, like when you walk up to the front of the supermarket and they've got like the National Enquirer, right? And it's like some dude has given birth to an alien, right? And you're like, oh, but it just seems that that's what's happened here. It's like people are like, oh, mainstream media, screw mainstream media. But like, where are you getting this nonsense from, right? And then you have this, like, speaking of aliens, now you've got this doctor in Texas who's talking about demon spawn and like, have you guys seen this?
I've seen some great things this year.
I haven't seen demon spawn. Please enlighten me.
Oh yeah. So now one of Trump has been talking about hydrochloroquine, right?
Yeah.
As the magic bullet that will end all of this, right? And then there was a group, right? And this happens all the time, right? And that's why I find it so bizarre and entertaining, and at the same time frustrating. But there was this group called like American Frontline Doctors, something along those lines, right? And they were on the steps of Capitol Hill, and there was like a Breitbart camera talking to them. And there's this woman, and she's going on how she, I think she's Cameroonian, right? But she's like, yeah, I've treated 350 patients with hydrochloroquine and that other drug that Trump is pushing, right? And they're all cured. There is a cure. You don't have to despair, blah, 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 right? And then like a couple hours later, people start looking into her and like doxing her and whatnot. And let's check her out, Dr. Emmanuel, right? And they find out that she runs like some sort of weird church, right, where she's a pastor and takes donations, and then she's a big proponent of like demon sex with aliens and stuff like that. And I'm like, you see what's happening to America? It's just so ridiculous, right? Like crazy. What people are kind of like latching on to, right, with that thought or anything like that. It's just they're echo chambers, right? And they're just running with it, right? So nonsense.
Yeah, America's become like incredibly, polarized in terms of like, and politicized in terms of like what people believe, and that really fucks up our news and our information sources. And America's is just a freaking mess. Most people like that are under 35, I would say, they don't really go to mainstream media. They don't turn on the TV to watch Fox News or CNN. They don't pick up the paper at the store. They get most of their information from Twitter, or Facebook, Instagram, because they compile all the news and put it all together. Whether it's right or wrong, I mean, everyone's, at least it's pretty young nowadays, it's just constantly fed the information. It's not like they're going out and seeking it. They're just, whatever they're fed for the day is what they believe is happening.
That's the same demographic that doesn't really vote as much though as well, right? So you've got like a double whammy problem there. And I think a lot of prominent influencers who know the deal, trying so hard to influence younger people to actually get out and vote, even though the choice isn't really appealing.
Yeah, I feel that people are just, it's sad. I just feel people getting dumber and dumber. I'm just seeing a complete lack of critical thought. I'm seeing them just latched on to these ideas. I'm seeing rabid anti-intellectualism on, and I think this is like almost like a global phenomenon, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And people forget, and they don't realize that, you know what, we've been here before, right? Just look back like 50 years. I mean, this was happening in like 68, right? And it just seems to me, right, and this is something that George was saying, right, that this does happen every 50 years. America goes through this like kind of like cataclysmic cycle, right, where history repeats itself, and it's all brought upon by race.
Was it you that was telling me about the cycles, generational cycles after, let's say, you've got the destructive generation, right, and you've got the rebuilding generation, and the ones that are just in, kind of having fun generation, and then you've got the destructive one again.
I think I'm a firm believer in that, right? It's that things do happen at this generational level. And I think right now, you're having something that's very, very similar, like almost identical to what was happening in the late 60s with this awakening, right, of, I don't want to say the radical left, but this social awakening that people are going through, right? This kind of like whole new come to Jesus thing. But who are these guys, right? I mean, when you look at these guys who are protesting in the streets, they are largely, they're not unfortunate, right? They're sitting there probably on mommy or daddy's dime, right? And they're well funded, and they've latched onto this idea. And it's very much what happened in 68, like with the whole Woodstock movement and stuff like that, right? The Summer of Love. So I think that we always have to look back at history and see what the lessons are there, and kind of apply that to what's happening now, right?
You said something about, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying, like, people don't really change, right?
Yeah.
At their base. It's just from one thing to another, right? Like, when I was in high school, I was talking to one of the, and I may have mentioned this to you, Clem, but I was talking to one of the hall monitors, right? We had these hall monitors. So basically, they're like guys who make sure that people go to class and stuff like that. So I asked her, I was like, well, what's the difference between, she'd been working there like 30 years, right? And I'm like, what's the difference between now and then? She's like, it's only the faces change, right? It's the same people, right? You've got the jock, you've got the class clown, you've got the beauty queen, right? You've got the loners, you've got the film, like the AV crew. I don't know if they still have those guys now, right? Like the audio visual guys. You've got the guys who go to like the mechanic shop, right? Like all of these kind of like different subsets. And it just repeats itself, right? Again and again and again and again.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of things. Okay, so you mentioned how you don't want to say it's the far left, and I was listening to, and Brandon and I have been talking a lot about this lately, but I was listening to Jim Rickards about his thoughts on the U.S. dollar and also the economy at whole right now. And he was talking about how some of this doesn't make any sense, with the way that they're printing, these trillions. They're now printing another trillion. They still don't think that's enough. So anyway, one of his points was you've got these kinds of ideas of socialism that are kind of coming to the surface because we want to save everybody. But if you look at history, a lot of the great wars and depressions and things that we suffered through actually come from a socialist ideology. And when he said something that shocked me. He said that Mussolini actually, when asked what his inspiration was, said Woodrow Wilson, which was really shocking. And I was like, okay. I mean, you got to be careful these days. And that's another thing, man, being really super careful about the things you say. You can't really speak freely anymore without either being labeled and shamed or canceled outright.
Right.
That's a fucking problem.
Get doxxed or whatever. Right. So thankfully I'm at that kind of stage where I just don't care anymore. Right?
Fuck you.
So, yeah. I'm like, I can say whatever I want. So, I don't have to worry about the man saying, "Oh, that's not what we espouse" or anything like that, right? So yeah. I feel it's quite liberating because I can just like let fly. So it's like I can be like an angry old man and just whatever, man.
Yeah.
So
yeah, shit. I mean, go ahead, Brendan.
Things are getting like really uptight nowadays. Like you don't know like what the new thing of the day is that you're not allowed to say. So, I mean, I'm in Colombia right now, so it's like no one gives a shit. But in America, like this was really bad in the collegiate system and in college, but you say one thing and then all of a sudden it's now racist or it's homophobic or it's wrong or it's and they keep coming up with new things, and then it's like this attack on freedom of speech in America. Over the last half decade, they came up with this idea of something called hate speech that should apply in the Constitution in the U.S. So no matter what you say, like if you say something that's considered hate speech, something that's hateful to someone in their point of view, and then there should be legal repercussions for that. And it's kind of just bullshit because it's like, okay, what's the point of free speech? You can't say whatever's on your mind.
What can you say, right? So anything you say, somebody's going to be offended, right? Somewhere, somehow. So it's a form of repression, right? You can't say anything now, right? It's like, oh my God, I offended that guy. I didn't even know I was offending that guy, and now you've lost your job, right? I mean, is it fair? I don't know, right? And that's kind of the debate. I mean, when I was younger, I mean, it was all about gay rights and things like that. And I was like, okay, fine, that's the battle here. But now this battle has just gone like full spectrum warfare on every single person, every line item of humanity, right, has their own thing, and you can't cross any of these without offending someone from another line, right? So I feel PC has gone a bit overboard, right? And I'll be the first to say that, look, I support all of that, right? Like my political leanings are moderate left, right? And I've gone, at one point I was moderate right now, and then I went, and gradually as I've gotten older, I've gone a little more left, right? I think that's because of my sister, right? And the kind of calming influence she's had on me. And also you become a father, right? And you're like, well, yeah, maybe, right? Hey, is it too early to start drinking?
No,
this?
bro, it's not too early. We can continue talking about this once we've had a swig of this. I don't know. How do you want to take it?
Well, I'm going to try it first. Just neat.
Just neat. Me too. Green Label. I've never had this before, and all of us have had our fair share of whiskeys. Have you tried this before, Brendan? Apart from today?
I've tried Johnnie Walker with you, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe on the podcast, but not the Green Label.
Green Label, no. This is good stuff.
I don't have a shot glass, though, so I can't shoot it, but I could take a pull if we're going to shoot it. But
well, I was thinking just right now.
It's probably nothing more gangster than taking a pull of Johnnie Walker Green or Blue.
As we did in college, you couldn't carry shot glasses with you, so you just carried a bottle.
Just have one in your back pocket.
Well, literally,
you remember when we went to, what was it, Lit? Cheers, guys, by the way. Cheers.
Wow. Very civilized.
Yeah, that's like a really warm after.
It's good, but it takes a few to kind of get warmed up to it. It's got a strong kick.
It's a very smoky, I think, aftertaste.
Yeah, you can taste the barrel.
Smokier. It's definitely peatier than normally the Johnnie Walker I have is like black or double black, and I usually have that with some soda water, like a summer drink. But this, I mean, not super peaty, but it has enough. I like it. Okay.
I wonder what the blue tastes like. I think we should do that for like our grand finale episode of season 3 or something.
The one I want to do is the Johnnie White Walker.
White Walker. Nice.
I've seen
they made a reference to Game of Thrones with that one. I don't know if it's any good, but it'd be fun to try that one.
Yeah, I don't think they'd put their best stock into that bottle, but I'm sure it's probably got like a spicy, I don't know, wintry flavor to it or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm like I'm a traditionalist, right? So I'm like, really, you guys are doing that, but I get that, right?
You got like a Back to the Future tequila or something.
Sure. You guys doing? Well.
I can taste the flux capacitor. I don't know. I'm not a collector. Let's just say that. But I do like a good brand. And Johnnie Walker is really actually pretty. It's a very consistent brand, and I think it's one of the best mainstream ones. But man, we've been trying everything on this episode so far. We've been through Monkey 47. Nice. We've had some Patron, which was great.
Hendrix gin. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we take shots on this show, you see. So taking shots of some of these spirits is disastrous for your insides. But we do it anyway. So yeah, but dude, I remember the last time we were in well, it wasn't the last time maybe, but I did really enjoy that night. We went to that Japanese bar in Manila called Lit and tried those, the sampling menu. That was actually really interesting. It's the first time that I had one.
That was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're Japanese whiskeys, like velvet,
Yeah, you're right. And that was the first time I'd actually really tried Japanese whiskey. So yeah, it was a really nice experience. And I was always
whiskey like compared to what we usually drink.
Well, I think that theirs is definitely a lot less smoke or peat, right?
Mm-hmm.
For lack of a better term, like for the layman, they tend to be smoother. They go down easier.
Yeah, Jameson's a real bitch. That Irish whiskey, when we took a shot, it took the lining of your throat off.
It has a kick. Right?
Yeah, it's nothing. It's the opposite of like an Irish whiskey. Let's just say that.
It's good on some ice, but trying to shoot it is not pleasant.
Yeah. But you've been through, well, let's talk about, we can come back to the whole economic scenario and fascism and all that shit that's going on right now, because there's so much to say about it. But you've had an interesting career so far. And it was funny how we met, right? First time we were in some kind of Facebook chat, some group on Facebook. And I think we were talking about, marketing at large in the Philippines and how it was a little bit behind.
Yeah, I think it still is.
Yeah, it is. But I got my ass like torn open by these guys in there by simply just saying something like, have we considered looking overseas for some influence and using that in our, and I think, the insular mindset really kind of kicked in, and I really saw what it was like to try to, come from an overseas.
Sure.
Yeah. Expats are not like there basically. And I learned that really quickly. Yeah. And that's when you reached out and you were like, hey bro, good job.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like you said, I've had a pretty checkered career, long career in digital, right? So I owe a lot of who I am to it, right? And I feel that I can say that I really seen it all, right? From
yeah, you must have, man.
Yeah, I've worked in Silicon Alley. I've worked in Silicon Valley, right? I've done my time in Southeast Asia. I've seen 2 .com bubbles or implosions, right? But yeah, it's weird to kind of, well, not weird, maybe too strong, but looking back over the 20 plus years, right, of just kind of like watching this industry grow up, and now it's like TV, right? It's so ingrained into the general zeitgeist and how people consume media that, I've got my 5-year-old and he's on Zoom meetings, right?
What?
Yeah. That's a different topic, but you know what I mean? That's how pervasive technology and all of those pieces are, right? Is that even 5-year-olds are consuming media, digital media.
Yeah.
So where it was before, where you were looking at, I don't even know the numbers anymore, right? But just, you would be happy to get, and this is for like Singapore or Manila, right? Oh, a $10,000 buy, right? You were so happy to get that. And now it's just so much larger.
Right. You mean in ads, right? Like,
yeah, in ad spend,
right.
In ad spend. And just kind of like see the evolution, right? So, and see all these new people kind of coming in. I know with that. Yeah, you can kind of like look at it with some sense of wisdom, right?
Yeah.
And, find it entertaining.
Are you, how would you say you are now as a person compared to when you started getting involved with these big tech companies? Like, how has that changed you? Because there's a lot of people who might watch this, fingers crossed, if we do our marketing properly. There's a lot of people who might watch this and kind of wonder, okay, I know the resume of this dude. I've read it in the bio, and it seems like a pretty interesting career, kind of like the path I want to go down. But how has that changed you as a person? And are there any insights you can give on what it's like to work at these big, because you've worked at Google, Facebook, in pretty goddamn high positions, and I think a lot of people would be interested to know what that's like and how it changes you.
Oh, sure. I mean, first off, right, I mean, I was really grateful for my time at all of those companies, but like looking back now, I'm like, it's a typical corporate gig, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, right, it definitely has lost its luster, but like back in the day, it was like, oh, that was the coolest thing ever, right? I mean, what drew me to the industry, first off, was like the lure of easy money, right? Because you heard of like the Yahoo receptionist was driving into work in a Ferrari because of her stock options, right? And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I want to do that, right? And I didn't really know anything about advertising or anything about technology outside of just how to access my email. And then you kind of like dive into this thing, right? So the companies like Google and Facebook are very, very similar in the type of folks that actually work there and the type of systems and frameworks that they actually put in place, right? You need to be a pretty high performer to actually get in. I heard that it was harder to get into Google than it was to get into Harvard, right?
Right.
So I was like, yeah, okay, well, I never got into Harvard, but I'm like, okay, I got into Google twice, right? So like I must have been doing something right. But that being said, both of those companies, like I was saying, at their core, they're very similar because they're product-oriented companies, right? They are, at their heart, engineering firms. So these are the teams that they're the blue-eyed boys of the firm, right? And everything is driven by product. And for a marketer or a salesperson like myself, it's like I always felt that we weren't given the proper, respect, right? That we were just kind of like, oh, well, we'll make the shit, you go sell it, right? What do we care about like what you're actually thinking, right? And that's where I found myself diverging from what their core mission was and what I felt my own personal mission was, right? But going back to what it's like, very framework driven, very demanding in terms of KPIs. Like, for example, when I was running the Philippine sales team, we basically were looking at 30% at least quarter on quarter growth every quarter, right? And the planning process to get to that number and how you have to drive the teams to get to those numbers are, I mean, it takes a lot of work, and it does take its toll, right? Both companies like to stress like the work-life balance and things to that extent. And I know why. It's because if you consistently perform at these super high levels, you'll burn out, right?
Yeah. Well, what was a normal day like for you?
Well, one, it's like I knew what I was doing next week. Like my calendar would be completely full, right? I know like a week or even 2 weeks before what I'm going to be doing on a certain given day. So you become this kind of slave to your calendar, right? And it's a flat org, they say, but it's not really a flat org, right? There's a lot of horse trading. There's a lot of politics, which I found actually to be the most distasteful part, because in many ways they say, and maybe this is a warning to other folks, right? It's when Google says, do no evil, right? I'm like, yeah, okay, give me a break, right? Or like Facebook more or less says the same thing. We're here to connect the world, and you're aiding and abetting Putin in taking down American democracy, right? So take everything with a grain of salt. I mean, I feel a lot of people buy into this, right? That we're here to change the world. And I think a lot of people are drawn to that, which is why they're able to attract this top talent. But I feel that, as an organization gets bigger and bigger, it kind of becomes this machine where you really make a difference? How much difference can you make in a company that's 35,000 people, 65,000 people, right? Or however many thousands people are there, right? But everybody has kind of like bought into this system, right? Everybody's going to be googly, right? And that's an actual term. We're googly, right? What is that, right? If you ask me now, it's like, if you're going to be googly, you're like semi on the spectrum autistic MBA type.
Right. Yeah.
Right. These are the guys.
Yeah.
It's like Revenge of the Nerds in there.
Taking the Kool-Aid. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And it's not all it's cracked up to be. I mean, do you really feel that you need lunch in a cool cafeteria to motivate you?
Yeah. Battle of the Perks, I heard it was at the top.
Right. Or like sleeping pods or whatnot. Right. I mean, if you're the type that needs that type of motivation, then okay, maybe that place is for you. Right.
Yeah.
You want to, and these are the downsides, right? Because I don't think that people talk enough about the downside to all of this. Right. I think that, those gigs, right, if I had kept on going, probably would have killed me, right?
Yeah.
To find some semblance of equilibrium, I found myself like, dude, I was like drinking like a bottle of scotch a day, right?
Yeah, man.
My blood pressure was just like through the roof. It was like,
your liver must have been...
Yeah, who knows what my liver was.
No one wants to know.
Right, but like I was like, my blood pressure when I decided to take a step back was like 175 over like 135. Right, that was like stage 2 hypertension, if not higher. So
yeah, that must have been scary.
Yeah, and it was really one of my clients who kind of brought it to my attention. Right, because
really?
You're sitting there in the system, right, and you have no idea. Like you're so engrossed in what you're trying to do, and trying to hit that number and whatnot. And you know what? We did hit the number. I mean, just to set that record straight, we did 410%. At that time, that was a record, right?
Shit.
In all of Google in terms of fastest growth, right? But at what price? So this client said to me, she's like, have you been to the doctor? lately. And I'm like, why? She's like, because guys your age are just dropping dead. Right. And I'm like, And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, am I close to dropping dead? Do I look like that unhealthy? And maybe, right? Maybe it was because I was like my second martini at lunch, right? Or I don't know. But it gave me pause. And when I went to the doctor, I was like, holy shit, like 175 over 130, 135. He's like, yeah, you've got to slow down, right? You're going to have a fucking heart attack.
No, man.
So yeah, I mean, but did I feel like I was going to have a heart attack? No, but apparently, my body was, through all of the, just trying to make it through, right? Mm. Which reminds me of the time when my first job, I was actually an equities trader, right? And I was trading emerging markets out of Manila, where I would execute market orders for foreign brokerages, right? And there it was, you'd drink your coffee to get up for trading, right? So you'd have like 3 cups of coffee before the bell went off. And then you would be so amped on that 3 cups of coffee, then you would go in the stairwell and smoke like half a pack of cigarettes to bring you down and kind of like balance yourself. But then you'd come down, so you'd have to drink another 3 cups of coffee to kind of, so it was this mad cycle, right? Yeah. And that's the way at least I would cope, right? With all of that stuff. But now, like going back to some of the stuff that you were saying, it's like what's changed about me the most is that, yeah, I think I've found more of a balance in myself. And I've had to, right, like be more mindful and really kind of take a step back and smell the roses and see what's more, what my priorities in life, right?
Yeah.
Right. Is it running the rat race? How much is enough? Right. I would have these conversations with buddies of mine, like in New York all the time. So what's enough? A G5, a G6? Like, what do you need before you take a step back? Right. Maybe it's never enough.
Yeah.
But now, I'm definitely calmer, right? Slower.
And that's a good thing.
It's like, yeah, slowing down so that you can actually digest the situation and make a more sane decision and not actually get caught up in the frenetic energy of like these numbers that you're always surrounded by, right? Because, it's bad when you sit there and you're dreaming about spreadsheets, right? And that's all you see in your head are these like numbers and charts and numbers and charts, and hitting the target, because the target, and they design these targets specifically so that you never meet them, right? So yeah, that's kind of the downside, right? But the positive side is that you learn a shitload, right? I think my time there, right, I was able to, it helped me validate a lot of what I had actually thought, right? Because you kind of are going through your career and you're like, oh, this is the way that I do things, right? That's the way I do things. And it's your framework for success. And then when I went to Google and, also Facebook, right? That you see that, oh, these are just frameworks, right? So it makes you that much better, because now you realize that there is some sort of madness to your kung fu, right? So you're like, okay, well, if I do this, I can make myself more efficient. If I look at it from this angle, I'll be able to do that. And then you learn how to apply those things and actually build out frameworks of your own, which I've been able to take on to other areas like the life thereafter, right? And put those frameworks into play.
Nice.
Because I know that, it had worked. So it really gave me the discipline to think about things in a certain way, how to think about how to scale things, right? How to think more critically about putting a business together and what would actually be needed to achieve certain levels of success in that business, right?
Yeah.
And more importantly, those two companies taught me how to really drive a number. You know,
do you think those benefits outweigh some of the pitfalls, though, of working for a big corporation like that?
Yeah, absolutely. But don't let it consume you. I think everybody needs, or at some point, right? I'm super thankful for my corporate background, right? Because it's given me that framework for success, which I can take to other places. I think that it's a great training ground for success. So I wouldn't change anything, right? But also don't go in thinking that you're going in, it's like a walk in the park, right? And it's all going to be butterflies and roses and free catered lunches and stuff like that, because there's a price, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch. They will extract their pound of flesh. So if you go in thinking that way, then yeah, you're going to be okay, right? Just realize, don't go in with your eyes closed is what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. And make the most of the situation and learn as much as possible when you're at these places, right? Because it's intense. The competition is super intense, right? Mm-hmm. It's like being in either university or high school, and everybody's the smart kid, right? So that's the level of skill that you have to bring to the table every day, right? There are no bad players. Everybody is driven. Everybody is, some will say, it's a very cutthroat place, right? So don't go in thinking that it's Disneyland, right? And if you go in with these notions, then I think you're going to walk out better on the other side, right? Realize what it is.
Do you think that your entrepreneurial, because you are an entrepreneur, as far as I know you, and I think you've probably been like that, correct me if I'm wrong, like ever since. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're just that kind of a person, enterprising, seeing opportunities. And do you think that was one of the reasons why, you were able to get out when you did, because you knew that if you did, you'd still be able to do something else and start something new, and you wanted maybe to build your own thing, and or just thinking, yeah. I mean, that's part of, but I think everybody has to go through their own voyage of self-discovery and kind of figure out what type of person they are, right? Mm. You've got to ask yourself, are you a big company guy? Or are you a small company guy, right? Do you like working for startups? Do you like working for big corporations? How much of a difference do you really want to make? And then what do you really like to do? And kind of build it from there. Like, what's your dream job? And what I found, where I performed best was with small teams where there wasn't a lot of structure or framework. And I found that I really enjoyed the building process of the journey, right? For me, that's the most exciting part, is like taking something from zero to a part where it's stable. And then at that point, I want out, right? And I'm like, oh, this is so boring. Right, exactly. Okay.
What am I going to do now, right? Like you've built the thing, right? And now, I don't know, like when I was a kid, when I would build my Legos or things like that, and as soon as it was done, I was like, oh, I don't want to play with it anymore, right? It had lost its novelty. Now it's just, you sit there and you got to make sure that it keeps on running every day. You've got to oil it. You got to, where's the fun, right? So that worked for me. Or I knew that was my mindset. And I've always kind of gravitated towards roles where companies that could, where I could do that, right? For me, the most fun is landing in a market where nobody knows what the hell is going on. You don't have a team, and you have to build it from nothing and figure out what happens in that market and how to sell to it, right? That, for me, that's exciting. For me or on the flip side, right, for someone to have actually built that market already, and it's an established market with rules and regulations and an established way of working, yeah, shoot me in the head, right? I mean, I would hate to do that, right? Which is also why every maybe couple of years I switch roles, because it's gone from a build to maintenance, and I don't want to be, the guy who maintains it. I don't want to be the mechanic. I want to be the guy who builds it. So that's what I found works for me, right?
Yeah.
It just so happened that those companies, and at that point in time in my career and where those various markets were, it was conducive to that, right? Now these markets are more stable, right? And it's where's the fun, right? It's now a 9 to 5 thing, right? With relentless numbers pressure.
Where do you, sorry, Brandon, do you want to jump in? Because there's a lot to...
I was just going to ask about the political aspect of it, because it seems like a lot of these large corporations, especially the tech companies, have a partisan point of view. And I was curious if you saw a lot of that, or if you thought that it might have a negative impact on, how a company is ran in a lot of aspects.
I think it really depends, right? I mean, obviously it works, but it's whether or not you actually want to deal with that horse shit, right?
Right.
At a personal level. But it definitely, yeah, I mean, I think it just comes with the territory. There's horse trading that happens. You have to actually sit there and negotiate with your peers, right? In terms of everybody's graded on some sort of a rubric or matrix, right? And I was a level 7, right? Which is like maybe 2 or 3 reporting lines away from Sergey at the time, right? So I felt that, man, for me to hit level 8, right, I would have to do some really, really crazy shit, right? And to actually maintain that kind of level, you had to be able to promote certain people up to a certain level. They had to see how good you were with managing these people and making sure people actually were advancing that were under your tutelage or your reporting line, right? And to get that, everything's in a pool, and there are only so many people that can actually advance, right? So managers were horse trading all the time. It's like, look, you get my guy up to level 4, right? This time, when you bring up Sam, right? Sam X for level 5 promotion next quarter during the next promotional cycle, I'll support it, right? So there's this type of stuff going on all the time, right?
Wow.
So the systems itself encourage this type of politicization, right?
Yeah.
So is it bad? I guess it's just human nature, right? To actually do that, right? And I think that for the most part, they did it a lot better than a lot of other companies, right? Because the proof is in the pudding, right? Look at, I think now is the only time that they've seen like a dent in their growth. So, but it is a corporate machine, right? And each corporation has a different set of core values that you have to choose whether you want to follow or not. Is that you as a person, right? Did I answer your question?
Yeah. I was just kind of curious from your point of view, because it seems like there's just so many companies taking a strong political stance, and I'm always wondering if that affects like the business decisions they make or how they run their companies.
So you were saying, were you talking about a political stance in terms of I'm going to support Biden?
Well, my company is going to be forced to be incredibly progressive in its ideology or incredibly conservative in its ideology, and we're only going to run the company in this direction. I imagine it probably does affect things in some ways, but
yeah. So to answer your question, yes, I think it absolutely does, because Google and Facebook have this very progressive, or at least from the outside, a progressive political leaning, right? That we're flat, diversity, we have all of these perks. We really take care of our employees, right? So I think that it does have an effect, but then what happens over time, right, as these corporations get larger and larger, they lose their way, right? They're not these 300-person companies anymore where everybody was able to go there and sing Kumbaya. Now you are the Borg, right? You've got an army of 65,000 of the smartest people on the planet, right? And all of these guys aren't going to be thinking the same thing. And when they do go a certain way, you will have blowback internally, like it's happened at Facebook, right? It's happened at Google as well in terms of what they've been doing with fake news or suppression thereof, right? I mean, you're not going to be able to please everybody, but I think that what Facebook and Google are facing now is the fact that a lot of the people in their workforce have these progressive ideas, but the reality of the political situation and the way that they're driven by the bottom line and pleasing the stockholder, they can't really fulfill that progressive promise to the extent that they originally had, right? Yeah. So that's my take on it, which is why you see all these guys walking out now, right? Because they're like, well, what are you guys doing about it?
I don't think you can ever really trust a public company to uphold any kind of specific political, because as soon as that changes, they're gonna support the other, the other view, right? I mean, that's politics.
They need to keep doing business, right? Businessmen
keep doing business, yeah. So you that's why I'm like, okay, all of these fucking mailing lists that I'm on, I'm getting, we support Black Lives and we support LGBTQ, and you can trust us, right? Whatever, I never really asked you for that, but I suppose you found out about it.
Sure.
But do they actually, they say all this stuff and they jump on the trend, but is it just to make money, or do they actually support?
I think that it's not entirely genuine. I feel that if they don't do that, then they get called out. They might have to deal with some level of employee revolt. They don't want to seem like they're the bad guys and they're going against the wave, right? We're supposed to be a liberal progressive company, and then all of a sudden we're enabling Putin, right? So these are things that they've got to deal with. And I mean, look at what's happening now. Hey, Sheryl Sandberg, are you leaning forward? Right? What's going on? So I think really when push comes to shove, you'll see what is really important to these guys, right? If they're going to be quiet on something, then you know what, right? I don't hear Sheryl Sandberg these days talking about anybody, and that's the thing I've learned. Anybody, when times are good, right, can sit there and talk about, how great they are and what their philosophies are and how it's so empowering and can move things forward. But when the shit hits the fan, that's when you find out what people are really made of, right? Who your friends are, what they really believe, right? It's times of adversity is where you should actually be judged as a person, right? One of my favorite quotes, Wall Street. If you guys watched Wall Street.
Yep. Which one? The first one or the Wall Street Never Sleeps?
Wall Street with Charlie Sheen and Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a scene at the end where Bud Fox is about to be taken in for his insider trading, right? And kind of like the voice of reason, this character played by Hal Holbrook, right, takes him aside and he says, Bud, I like you, Bud. He goes, man looks into the abyss, sees nothing staring back. That's when man finds his character, right? And I think and for me, that's a priceless quote because it's so true. It's when you're at the precipice, that's when you'll know what this dude is really all about, right? Did he really mean that? No. Or if he's going to fall on his own sword and take it like a man, then yeah, okay, absolutely. But it's at that point, right, where you can go either way and it's like a life or death situation. You'll know what these corporate guys are made of. And now you see, yeah, it's about an earnings call. That's what matters to them, right? If it really mattered, right, and then going back to politics, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, right, but if they really were here to make the world a better place, I think that it's obvious, right, to anybody what a company should do, right? Mm-hmm. Are you going to do the right thing? Right? Sometimes the right thing means that you take a loss, right? Or you're just along for the and whatever, right? You're not going to do the right thing and you're going to take the money. So is it wrong to take the money? Maybe not, right? But I feel you've lost some sort of moral high ground and you can't talk about that anymore, right? But we all have to make these kind of deals with the devil, I guess.
Do you feel like, and this is kind of this is like a aside from what you've just discussed. Do you feel like as a society, on a societal level, we have kind of saved people from the experience of being at the precipice, even in their personal lives? For example, with all the PC things that we implement at school, what we allow parents to do in terms of disciplining their kids, the kind of the kind of things that kids do these days, instead of going out and mixing with like other children their age or children older or younger, they spend their time on devices instead. Do you think that this kind of culture somehow is eliminating people's ability to see themselves properly and kind of figure out who they are?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm old school like that, right? I think that people are social by nature, right? So the more that you start to rely on these synthetic, or you start to swap out real human interaction for other things, right? Placebos or whatever it might be, right? Virtual babysitters versus an actual babysitter. I take the actual babysitter every time, right? Mm. So are we doing them a favor by actually kind of like shielding them from all of the bad? If you ask me, no, we're not doing them any favors. I think people need to run and fall down and get back up, right? Mm-hmm. That's me. I don't feel people should be overprotective. I think that, all the greatest innovation that we've seen in the world has been because people pushed the edge and not, had to suck from mommy's tit all the time, right? Yeah. At some point, you gotta put the titty down and you gotta go out and do it for yourself, right? Otherwise, you end up with
You can still want to have it later in life. It's just, it's not the same titty.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. Exactly. But yeah, for me, yeah, I feel if you're not actually experiencing it in the flesh and you're not doing it for yourself, then you're doing yourself a disservice, right? You're making yourself weaker. You're making, you're basically creating a highly dependent human being, right? Latching on to a framework that allows them this level of existence, right? So we might as well be plugged into the matrix, like we're all like the pod people.
That's right? Kind of getting there, I think.
Yeah. And is that who we want to be, right? Oh yeah, I don't want to be that guy. So that's my 2 cents.
When you see all of the hosts in the kind of incubators as it zooms out and there's like the lightning in the background and shit for like dramatic effect, it's actually probably the most terrifying scene in that film, because it's not a horror movie, but it definitely has these horror tropes in it. And when I saw that scene, I was like, because I really could relate to it. I could imagine that one day we might actually get to that point where we've just removed our decision-making process from anything. And we're literally just we're doing to ourselves what we do to whatever, like animals in the farming system. So yeah, man, that was a terrifying scene. Super terrifying.
Yeah, basically. I mean, are you going to be like, do you want to be the piece of Kobe beef that is massaged and gear? Some people like that.
Yeah, good one. It's a good life,
It's a good life, right? But you know what happens at the end, right? Some people, that's okay.
I think some people would choose that. There are some people.
I know a lot of people
would choose that. Yeah. A lot of people would choose that. They want the short term. They don't care about the future. They want the short term pleasure. That's one of the big things I feel like, FOMO culture has kind of taken a hold. Short term gratification, almost no ability to delay gratification, no focus. It's one of the, so my question actually on the back of what you just talked about is, now that we know some more of your thoughts about the big tech companies, how do you feel about the direction that the situation where like market capitalization of, like, let's say for example, the S&P 500, you've got like these 6 giant firms that are literally representing the entire stock market, like stock index, right? That's just insane. I was listening to how those 6 companies are basically what people look at when they determine whether the stock market's healthy or not, right? I mean, it's like, it's not a good reflection of the actual health of the overall, landscape.
It scares me, right? To see what's actually happening. I mean, it's terrifying in many ways for the reasons that we've discussed, right? You are looking at these monoliths now. We are plugging into a system, right, that we have increasingly lost our humanity. And, like one of the things that we were talking about, like before the show, is like, what are some of the trends you're seeing? And these trends, right, are all feeding into this dystopia, right? This tech dystopia, where you're going to have Skynet become aware, right? I mean, these are really scary.
You believe that? You believe AI will get to the point where?
Oh yeah, it's already happening, and you're already starting to see this happen in terms of how the workforce is shifting, right? The introduction, like more and more people will lose their jobs, right? This is just the tip of the iceberg. A lot of these jobs are never going to come back. And I don't think that people realize that right now, right? that they are going to be replaced by robots. As AI.
Do you think that we'll have to become more left and socialist to deal with the job loss, or do you think that new jobs will be produced as a result of automation?
Well, there will definitely be more jobs created, right? But at some point, there has to be like a leveling of what happens to all these people, right, who have no jobs, right? Yeah. There's an excess of human capital. What happens to that excess of human capital once you start to replace them with AI, right? With the robots. When you start, the Internet of Things starts to become more pervasive and the machines start running more and more of our daily lives, right? And it goes all the way back to all of these things from like the sci-fi writers, right? But these are realities that we're slowly having to come to deal with, right? Every year, like, computing capacity doubles, right? So
I think the biggest issue is, we have a overpopulation issue. And that also attributes to the fact that, there just aren't enough jobs too. With technology taking a lot of that away and population continually going up, that leads to all kinds of problems. So, at some point, that's got to evolutionary correct.
Right. You're absolutely right. And that's what worries me. What does that correction look like? What happens when the system corrects, when the system pushes back? What happens when Mother Nature pushes back? And in some ways, I think what you're seeing now with COVID is a manifestation of that.
Yeah.
Right? It's nature is pushing back, right? So what's next, right? We don't know. There's nothing like the power of nature, right? To see what happens. So going to be a huge war where 2/3 of the population gets culled, maybe, right? There are all of these different trigger events and events that can happen, which makes it pretty scary when you think about it. But what I think is clear is that this is just the beginning, right? We're not going to wake up tomorrow and the effects of what we've seen transpire over the past 6 months is going to be gone, right?
Right. How many more times can we do, how many more trillions can we pump in to save companies?
Exactly. And that's a scary thing, right? Because you're looking at not only this COVID-induced economic mess, right? But you're looking at a fundamental structural issue in the economy right now, right? With this, everyone's leveraged to the hilt, right? And everyone, if you look at what the smart guys are saying, they're all like, this looks, it's going to make 2008 look like a walk in the park.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Yeah. So what's going to happen? I saw an interesting stat the other day, right? Where they were showing all of the companies on Yelp that had closed, right? And or had partially or fully closed. And it was something like 50% of those companies weren't coming back, right? I think it was something like 80% of the entire Yelp directory had been impacted, right, to some extent, and half of those aren't coming back.
Jesus.
So when you look at something like that, you're like, oh my God, and the knock-on effect that has, right? Yeah. Especially in the service economy, they're like, okay, now these waiters, what's going to happen when their $600 a month run or $600 a week runs out, and then the stimulus package is done, the $1,200, right? Then they're going to have to deal with the reality of their credit cards, right? And then they're going to have to pay that. And How many people does that person support? And it goes on and on and on, right? There was something really interesting I saw. There was this chef in New York. He's like part Swedish, part Ethiopian. Samuelson is his last name. And he was saying that something like the airlines employ something like 750,000 people. And the food and beverage industry, the restaurants, is maybe like 10 to 15 times that. And the airlines are getting all sorts of bailouts. But the restaurants, especially these independent restaurants, aren't getting anything. So if you're looking at something that's like 10 times the size of, in terms of actual people employed, right, that's disastrous for the economy. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking at what's happening now, right, like people can't go to restaurants.
Yeah, the worst thing they're doing is putting all this injected liquidity into the economy, thinking, that it's going to solve things, and just postponing this debt bubble that we're in, especially in the U.S. Everyone's scared of that collapsing and dealing with the ramifications. Honestly, it's kind of like going to happen at some point, no matter what. It's just like, is it going to the can going to get kicked down the road? Or are we going to just kind of suck it up and deal with it? Because we're getting to the point where, we're not going to be able to hang on much longer. I think you're starting to see that different asset classes being reflected as well. And the stock market's having a hard time recovering, and a lot of negative things are happening in terms of the unemployment rate and people not being able to work. And then you put the virus on top of everything, and it's a cocktail for disaster. Economic.
The economy was already suffering before the virus hit, and it was just almost like a aimed bullet, just fucking split, the whole thing, and now it's all pouring out. I just feel like it's been a complete disaster, but it was a good thing, maybe, right? I mean, maybe, because I feel like the sooner we deal with this problem, the better. I mean, how much money do you really want? How much damage do you really want to do to people's livelihoods before you kind of like say, okay, look, guys, we're going to have to, tighten our belts a bit and go through a significant amount of suffering. But on the other side, hopefully things will get a lot better. But fuck, man, it doesn't look like any. And this is the funny thing, right? There's only a few countries that are actually, refraining from printing a lot of money to try and save, the economy. And I just feel like there's almost no governments that are willing to let this situation almost deal with itself.
Right. Yeah, it's sad. I think we're in for a decade of turmoil.
What are your thoughts about China?
No. Where does one start?
New chapter, China.
where does one start with China? I don't know. What do you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a perfect opportunity for them, I think. I mean, I don't know what it looks like internally for China, but all I can go on is the external reporting that I've read and seen. But it just seems to me like they are like a predator almost, just kind of like lurking in the bushes and spying and seeing what's happening, ready to pounce at any moment.
You got to remember that China's economic growth has a lot to do with the U.S. You got two biggest economies in the world between the U.S. and China. And China has stated a number of times that, even if the U.S. economy were to collapse, China would keep growing at a pretty decent rate. But the reality is, you take away their biggest customer, China's economy is going to struggle too. So I don't think that they're, in any situation to not panic either. And they are growing tremendously, but there's no way they're going to skirt the financial disaster that's also on the horizon for them. So
I agree 3,000%. I mean, pain is coming, right? Who knows? I mean, they're well known for fluffing the numbers and whatnot. And I think that they've been a bit overzealous in their pursuit of this kind of great China dream that Xi Jinping has had for them. I think if you look at China, like from a geopolitical situation, right? Yeah, they certainly do hold some cards, but they have, well, the wealth disparity in China is actually quite big, right? I mean, all of the wealth is concentrated on the coasts. The inner parts of China are in many ways very, very backward and dirt poor, right? And they've been able to benefit, like you were saying, Brandon, like from this basically US-led inclusion into the global system. And now you're starting to see people start to push back, right? With all of these various alliances forming, people crying foul of the debt traps and these kind of poison pills that China is putting forward in the form of, you know, infrastructure loans and whatnot. I think China talks a good game. I think that the U.S. is still in a very, very strong position. I don't think that the Chinese have many friends on the global stage. I don't think they've done them. I think they've done themselves a disservice in terms of how they actually have tried to play the various players off against everyone else. I mean, like, you can see it. It looks so clumsy when they're trying to deal with like Western powers. Like, oh, Great Britain, if you don't let Huawei in, you will pay the price, right? Yeah. That's not how you. I mean, who's going to listen to that guy, right? Mm-hmm. And they do that to like every single person or every single country as like an individual player. That's how they treat everybody. And they have this view, which is like China is the center of the world, right? It's this very nationalistic mindset. And, you know, it's evident in the way that they talk about their own policies. Like, you know, like going back to the Philippines, or like one of their spokesmen said that, China is a big country and the Philippines is a little country. And this is the reality of it, right? So you have to do what we say. And
it's very forceful, bro. It's not, I mean, obviously the British Empire was a fucking crazy, powerful, but, you know, I mean, you can draw comparisons, you know, to any kind of takeover of a country. But, I think in this day and age now where, you know, you kind of like, you hope for some kind of, you know, democratic, globalization where you can do business in faith. This kind of behavior really doesn't blend in very well. It's very bullyish. And I mean, you know, the US is being called a bully many times, right? So we're not just saying China is the bully of the world, but I think that on a very human level, it's missing those fundamental ethics that, you know, you must at least, you know, do things in a certain way, decently, as much as possible, because that's just what the world's supposed to be like, right? It's like an ideology that you hold up. It's like, okay, we're going to be good about this. Okay, it has to happen, but let's try and do it in the best way possible. And I just feel like that's absent from a lot of the things that they partake in, especially with their own people. And something has to be done about that, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying all Chinese people are. I'm half Chinese myself, right? But something really has to be done about, you know, the way that they're pushing their weight around the world. Because let's face it, I don't think anyone in their right minds would want to live under complete surveillance and control from
that's what, everyone on this conference call, right? I mean, we have this kind of like Western training and this Western school of thought, right? But what makes it so harsh is that China has just decided to, I mean, it's a complete departure from this rule-based system, this rule-based framework that has been in existence, right, since the end of the Second World War, right? And China will be like, yeah, well, that was something that, was an invention of Great Britain and her allies. And I think in many ways they see they see the U.S. as the ones who have inherited the crown, so to speak, of the UK, and they view the US in that term. The thing is that China has been playing this game, right? This long game for quite a while, right? And it's now only becoming evident because they have increased in stature and power what their actual goals and objectives were, right? I think back in the day when they first opened up China, everyone was thinking about that, how, China could be a peaceful rise of right. China where everybody was like, everybody can make money, right? But the reality of the situation, and I think what people are starting to see now, is that
they didn't change.
Yeah, that it's not going to be a peaceful rise, right? That in many ways they're very vindictive about the past wrongs that were done to them via the gunboat diplomacy and the opium wars, and they're still pissed off about, well, maybe I'd be pissed off too about the British and the French burning down the Summer Palace, right? And the shame of Hong Kong and all of that, right? So you're dealing with this almost kind of like juvenile mindset, right? In terms of it's going to be payback. And when payback comes, it's going to be a bitch. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And you guys will see, right? Mm-hmm. And it's evident in their foreign policy. It's evident when you hear their guys talk, right? I mean, the U.S. isn't much better now with friggin' Trump, right? But I'm always entertained by the mouthpieces of totalitarian governments, right? I don't know if you guys remember this, but back in the day, they had a guy named Baghdad Bob, right? During the first Gulf War. And he was talking about how Saddam's army would drive back the forces of imperialism and they would be like laid waste before the Euphrates in great balls of fire, like all this kind of crazy rhetoric. And meanwhile, American armored columns were already like inside Baghdad and at the airport and like taking it over, right? And you see that in the way that the Chinese talk, right? They're like, if you don't put in our 5G network, you will pay the price, right? Or you are making a big mistake by doing this or by doing that. I mean, it's like threats. It's like outright threats to folks that are used to working in this kind of like rule-based system. And I think it's sad that we've kind of like departed from that. But maybe the Chinese feel that it wasn't their system to begin with, so they're going to do it their way. And now it's just you've seen them for who they really are, right?
Do you feel like threats are really the only way forward at this point? Because I feel like there's a huge trade war, happening now, where we're gonna, obviously, like Huawei is going to be one of the key players in that war. But is it going to stop there? Is it going to escalate? What's going to happen if it escalates? Are we going to see an evolution of a Cold War into a real war? I mean,
I definitely think that there's going to be a new Cold War, right? That you're going to probably see the world split up into two camps, and Asia is going to be interesting because it's at the front line, right? So you'll kind of see it more or less a Huawei world versus an Ericsson world. Right. And what those two worlds are going to look like. But if you look at history and how these great power games have usually played out, it doesn't end well, right?
No, you can't.
which is the sad thing. The two biggest kids on the block will ultimately. I mean, I think the Cold War with the Russians was probably the only time that you had such a buildup of arms and weaponry that was never actually used, right? And now we're in the midst of another one. But here, there is the added wrinkle of a clash of civilizations, right? As in East versus West. And not to bring race into the picture, right? But it is, right? There will be a huge racial element to this and you're already starting to see it, like in the way that the U.S. is reacting to some of these things, right? Like you're seeing a rise in, take your Kung Flu back home or whatever, right? You're already starting to see the demonization and the othering of Asian Americans, right? And they're all being lumped into, you're all Chinese, right? Yeah. Whether or not they're Korean or Japanese or whatever.
Don't they know about that?
Yeah, I know, right? So, I mean, sadly, I think that there's going to be, they're going to be shots fired at some point, right? And yeah, I mean, that's never a good thing. But right now, the U.S. definitely has the upper hand.
Well, did you? Sorry, go ahead, Brennan.
No, the U.S. probably does have the upper hand. In my opinion, they do because of Trump, because Trump actually pushes back against a lot of China's bullshit, which is why we're in a trade war. So, I mean, I think that's one of the few things that Trump has going for him is he pushes back against China a lot and gives the U.S. ability to, not get fucked in the ass in the situation.
That's one thing I like about Trump is his ability to not, let people walk all over him. I think that's a good thing. Hopefully he can do it in a refined way, but not probably.
That was a huge issue in America. Is having presidents that, would just get walked over all the time.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why he got elected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, Trump's China policy, I'm in full support, right? I could think of nothing more humiliating than when Obama went to Beijing or to China and they didn't roll out the red carpet and they had him depart from the back of the airplane, like no fanfare. I'm like, dude, you know the Chinese, right? That is a direct insult. That was intent, right? And for Obama to sit there and take it in the ass like that was humiliating, right? But to Trump's credit, right? I mean, he's not one to take those things lying down, which is why I enjoy this his China tirades. But to be fair, right, the pivot to Asia started during Obama's term. It's just that I don't know. He the execution, right? Like he just doesn't come across as this kind of guy who's going to like punch somebody in the mouth, right? And I think to stand up to guys like China, you have to really push back. But here's the flip side. He's so strong against Xi Jinping, but then with Putin, he's like, hey, buddy, right? Like I heard you were putting bounties on my soldiers' heads. That's cool. Like, I don't get it, right? So I think if he were a little more even-handed in kind of his treatment of traditional American foes, then you wouldn't be trailing like this, right? But now you even have guys like hardcore Republicans are like, dude, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting come November.
I don't know what you need in terms of dirt on you to be able to get to be a president of the United States of America these days, because I feel like if you're vanilla and you're not culpable of anything, you're probably not going to be able to make it, because there's no leverage against you, you know? I mean, I wonder what Obama had on him, because that shit got hidden pretty well, man. But he was a pretty placid person, but you know, he didn't want to piss anyone off. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm so excited about this. I feel like she is just going to be the next best entertainment we've got right now.
God, yeah, right. The sordid tales that, so they just released a bunch of letters, like emails, right?
Yeah.
And I'm oh man, I don't know. Is this kosher to talk about, like, on this show?
Oh yeah, man. We talk about anything. We talk about orbiting chicken farms on Mars.
But like some of them.
Sorry for that.
So there was a very interesting podcast. I think it was James Altucher. Do you know him?
Yeah.
So he did something on a theory he had about Epstein.
Oh God, I'm going to listen to this afterwards. Yeah. Okay.
It's fantastic, because he was like trying to figure out. It's like, well, what is going on? And I'm going to get this all wrong, right? But basically, this is kind of what he said, right? I'm going to be paraphrasing a lot. But he was trying to figure out the source of his wealth and why all of this stuff was happening. And what he was thinking was like, oh, the source of his wealth is basically this. He, and I think like a lot of the information that's coming out has kind of affirmed this, but he basically ran, well, we know that he ran this call girl or sex service.
Yeah.
But he was saying that it's basically a subscription service.
Oh shit.
Where you pay X amount and you're guaranteed, you know, certain levels, right? So, and he talks, this whole podcast is about, he's just dissecting the business model of Jeffrey Epstein, how he came into his millions and how he came to be so influential. Right. Yeah. Is that he was running a subscription service, basically.
That does sound like it would do the deal. And, you know, just to know that he was recording everything. I mean, did you watch the documentary? You saw his private room in his New York mansion, which had all of the video cameras. There was loads of them. And that just goes to show what kind of shit was going on. So these people that were part of that club, that subscription model maybe, are so worried right now about what she is going to say.
Oh, I know, right?
And that's why I'm so excited, because I know it's probably not the right word to use, but I mean, it's exciting because this shit needs to be said. Like, we need to know who the fuck we're doing that.
If she dies, people are going to freak out.
Yeah, man. I don't think there's any way that she can be murdered, because it would just be too
convenient.
Yeah, it would be too obvious, and there would have to be an investigation for sure. You know, I don't think there'll be one into Epstein, but if she was to kick the bucket somehow, like, come on, what are you going to do? There's going to be another riot.
So these conspiracy types are trying to decode Trump's language. Right. And they're saying that when he was saying, I wish you well. No. You know, like, well,
I mean, like, what?
So they're saying that's actually very coded intelligence speak. You know, these are the QAnon types, right? That, oh, yeah, he's basically sending her a threat. If you know, he's not really wishing her well, right?
That could be an Italian. Yeah, like a Sicilian mafia kind of. Yeah. Hey, I wish you. He's a friend of the family. Yeah,
I wish you well.
Yeah,
So
man.
yeah, I think Windsor trial set next year, but
I'm not sure.
A year from now? Jeez.
I know,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of them. The lot that can happen here.
That's a whole year for someone to kill her. Jeez.
can you imagine, dude? She was hiding in New Hampshire this whole time. You know, it's not like she was like in some far off place like Marrakesh with like, you know, like
Right.
going completely off the grid. I'm like, dude, she was like in some fucking house, wrapping her phone in tinfoil and evading prosecutors.
Yeah. Jesus.
But,
Well, only time will tell, man. I mean, I was joking earlier that when I was looking into, you know, claims that Bill Clinton had been, you know, at the island with underage girls, and I was listening to a bunch of Peter Schiff. I don't know if you know who Peter Schiff is, but basically this very, very, how would you explain him, Brandon? Off the hook.
He is a passionate economist.
Passionate economist. If you listen to him, you feel like you're going to have a heart attack after a while. I was joking that, you know, I'm going to I have to sniff coke just to deal with it. And I'm going to ask you what you think of like COVID aliens that are here to, you know, install socialism in our, you know, and use ethnic minorities as a form of fuel to power their new civilization.
like that.
Right,
These
yeah.
are some of his, oh my God.
No. That's what I was saying was going to come out of my mouth as a result of snorting coke and listening to this dude. But there just seems to be so much going on right now, and I feel like the seams are tearing in our society, like, everywhere. It's just it's worrying, man. I thought it would be contained, but it's global, you know. So this is something serious, and you know, I hope it doesn't get as bad as we think it's going to get. But then when you think about it, what's the solution, man? Is there an alternative to that? Because I feel like it has to get really bad.
It has to get really bad.
I mean, I think so. What are we going to go back to the way we were before?
I don't see any other way around it. It's going to be bloody,
Yeah.
right? No one wants it to happen, but basically, you know, Brandon, you touched on this earlier, is that we're just delaying the inevitable, right? What happens when you stop printing money? At some point, you have to pay the piper, right?
More importantly, what happens when interest rates go back up? I mean, we're pretty much, you know, borrowing money, printing money, spending money, like,
Yeah.
you know, tomorrow. You know, that's being in this giant debt bubble is what's creating so many problems, and it's going to pop disastrously at some point. It's just, is it going to pop today? Is it going to pop tomorrow? In 5 more years? Like, how far are we going to kick the can down the road? That's the question everyone's asking. Like, it's inevitable, and it's going to be nasty. And when the U.S. goes down, so will practically every other major first world country, because the U.S. economy dictates so much. The U.S. dollar dictates so much in the world nowadays. The dollar index slid like 6% in the last 3 months. That's a lot for a currency. So the U.S. dollar is losing a lot of trade value right now too. So who knows where we go in 2020? Who knows if it gets any better or not? It's got to crash.
Worst year ever.
Oh, wait, we're almost at 2021. Hold your breath, bro.
Yeah, 6-1.
Shit. Well, I didn't want to finish this. I don't think Brandon or I wanted to finish this conversation on a low note, but you know, like it's been really fascinating, actually, like diving into what you think about all of this. I don't know, Brandon, do you want to ask anything else?
You know, we touched on so many things, honestly. I don't have anything at the top of my mind.
Yeah,
but maybe we should take another drink to end it off, right?
Yeah, I think we need one. I think we need I need another drink. I don't know about you, but let's do this.
A fresh.
So I bought. Yeah, I bought these shot glasses. They're actually ceramic, but they're like 50 cal. You can't really see it. 50 cal shells. the idea was I'm going to buy an opaque shot glass.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
So that I can disguise the fact that I'm not drinking alcohol sometimes, so that I can, like, you know, maintain a certain level of sobriety. Yeah. It just doesn't, it never works though. Like I always have a proper shot every time I'm drinking out of it. But yeah, like, yeah, thanks for coming on. I know we've been on this call for like what, more than 2 hours now?
About 2 hours, maybe on the dot.
Yeah, we've covered so much, and it's been really interesting, and we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about what it's like to work in high performing tech company positions, and, you know, your views on geopolitics and things. It's been super interesting. I'm sure we should do another one in the near future, especially if World War III starts. Maybe we can do a commentary.
So guys,
watching.
Yeah, definitely. I had a blast. Thanks for having me. You know, I mean, yeah, I look at the clock and it has been 2 hours, but it's kind of flown by.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to an old man talk. Right?
Hey, you look young.
Not at all, man. Hey, by the way, how can people, like, if they want to learn more about you, how can they do that?
Well, all of my stuff is kind of like on, I guess Instagram.
Right. Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're very well guarded, man. I know that. So
yeah, I have made a very conscious effort, right, not to post anything inflammatory, but like I will find myself kind of unhinging every now and then and just like letting fly. Yeah. Like I said, you know what? Like with age, you get this certain liberties, right? That you don't have to worry about. Oh well,
it's just because he's like older.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna get doxxed. I'm like, so what, right? Like you're gonna tell my boss. I'm like, oh, Vanessa, listen, this guy wants to tell you something. He says I've got some crazy views, but yeah, look me up. I guess try to find me on Facebook. I don't know what type of security settings I've got on, but you know my name, Narciso Reyes. And then on Instagram, I'm at Flatiron3B. You can find me there as well. Drop me a note once I see it. You know, I'm happy to chat.